You are listening to NYC Radio Live. David Ellenbogen here. Glad you're with me. Today we are celebrating the life of the jazz legend Jack DeJohnette. He passed away just 2 weeks ago, and he left an incredible body of work behind him, and we're all super thankful for that. He kind of created the soundtrack to many of, well, I'll speak for myself, to my own life. I mean, his drumming on Miles Davis's Bitches Brew and a tribute to Jack Johnson. That's just part of who I am now. And, you know, he played such beautiful and delicate music with the Keith Jarrett trio with Gary Peacock on bass. And he didn't stop. He just worked with so many countless legends, from Ornette Coleman, Thelonius Monk, Alice Coltrane, John Coltrane. It never stopped. I mean, Herbie Hancock, and it's a long list. Sun Ra. He played with Sun Ra. I mean, he was instrumental in a very magical time in music that I think will always be seen as a high water mark of creativity of the of the human species. Maybe I'm going overboard, but that's how I feel about him and his music. And that's how I felt in 2010 when it was arranged that I would interview Jack DeJohnette, and it was going to be over the phone. And I was nervous, so I really wanted to make sure the equipment worked, because it was some kind of metal box, and you had to port the phone through and send your radio mic through. And sure enough, it worked perfectly and when I tested it, but did not work when we'd call the hotel and they'd just say, hello. And so I was practically falling apart with embarrassment and nervousness as we're, sweating and trying to get this equipment to work. And finally it did, and the maestro answered the phone. And this recording, it ended up, the equipment only worked so well. My voice clipped every time I spoke practically, and so we did play it on the air, but it is yet to be listened to. For 15 years, it's just been on a dusty hard drive, because it required something like 200 or 300 edits, which I actually did, just to clean up all these pops that were happening whenever I spoke. So yeah, well, here we are in a time machine, jumping back to 2010 with Jack DeJohnette in a hotel room. I guess he was on tour in Chicago. I was in New York at WKCR-FM studio. And you'll see, he was a guy that's firing on all cylinders and just creative in every way. I mean, he stayed creative. In Woodstock, where I live, he was doing acting last year live and, in front of audiences. He just stayed creative, and you can get little glimpses into someone who really knows how to jump right into what he called the library of creative consciousness, a universal state that maybe is always there, but some of us are better at tapping into it than others, and he was one of the best. So thanks for listening, and thank you, Jack DeJohnette. And here we are, trying to reach Jack DeJohnette from a college radio station in 2010.
Hello.
Hey, Jack. So we did it. We got it to work. So
Okay.
all right. Thanks for your patience. I appreciate
No problem.
it. So yeah, man. I want to start right at the top. Your mom wrote the lyrics to "Stormy Monday." That's like one of the most perfectly written blues ever. Maybe you could tell us how that came about.
Well, I mean, she wrote it and then she sold the song to T-Bone Walker for $50. And in that time, people used to buy songs, from people. And jazz musicians did that, and so she sold it to T-Bone and it became a hit.
And was he in your circle of family and friends, or how did they make that connection?
Yeah, he was. I guess he was. Yeah, my uncle was a jazz DJ, and he liked jazz and and blues. So yeah, I saw T-Bone one or two times, but I was really young then.
Right. There's a picture of you on the website with him. And was that with his band that you relayed the story of you kind of like played a riff on a toy instrument? Was that
right? Yeah. And his band joined in. They knew the piece. It was a blues,
Wow. And you were in key and everything.
Yeah. Well, I used to listen to my uncle's Roy Wood's 78 records, and I used to listen to a lot of jazz even before I could read what was on it. And this was one of the tunes. I forgot who was the saxophone player. It was one of his riffs, popular.
Like an Illinois Jaquette or something like that.
Might have been.
Wow. And so
I remember the melody went bo 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 biddy do do be do de bip biddy de be bo bo biddy bo do bo ba 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 ba, and the band came in behind me, freaked me out.
Wow.
How did they know that? I said.
Wow, what a thrill. So was this a regular thing? Would you get out to the clubs with your family?
Oh, no. That was just a special night. My family went out, and T-Bone was playing at the Persian.
Mm-hmm.
Brought me down there, and my uncle was fond of me, knew that I liked to play these songs, and asked T-Bone if I could sit in with the band.
Wow. And so your uncle, he there was just tons of records that he'd bring by, or would you?
No, he used to collect them, in the house, and I used to have access to them and played them, on a Victrola we had.
So who were the earliest heroes on that Victrola for you?
There was Slim Gaillard and I guess Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Dusty Fletcher. Who else? I think some Tommy Dorsey stuff.
So was the jazz more than the R&B stuff that was happening, or more than the blues?
Yeah. Nat King Cole, the trio.
Oh yeah. He was a serious bebop pianist, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, Nat was, he was out of Father Hines,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot smoother, He was very, 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 very suave the way he played the piano.
Right, everything about the guy, really. And
very elegant.
And so when you were having these, early experiences listening to this, was the piano calling you? Was it the drums, or was it the whole thing? Was it dancing? What was coming across?
No, I was just fascinated by music. I started. My family, gave me piano lessons at a young age, and I used to listen to music on the radio a lot, used to listen to all kinds of music. I was fascinated by it, I used to listen to the jazz shows on the radio, between studying the piano and then listening to all kinds of music, music was just something that I was drawn to,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of music.
And this classical stuff, did you stick with it for the whole time, or was there a point that you slightly lost interest or something? Because I think you just studied until your teens, right, with the classical stuff?
Well, yeah, and then I got interested in rhythm and blues. People like Fats Domino, and also I was singing, doo-wops with a doo-wop group. So I was doing that. So did some of that for a while, and then when I was in high school, there was this alto saxophone player. What was his name? He was a red-headed guy. And I can't forget his name, but he started saying, "Hey, man, he put together a band, and he said, man, listen to Charlie Parker, start listening to Charlie Parker." And so I started listening to Charlie Parker, but my uncle also was a news broadcaster, and he was one of the first black broadcasters of an all-white suburban radio station in Chicago called WVON. And then later he became a jazz DJ. And then being that he was I got access to all the latest jazz albums, which saved me a considerable amount of money, I think to say.
Yeah, and hearing that stuff early probably was... Hearing that stuff at a young age was probably the way to go, to have it seep into your subconscious, all those great musicians.
Yeah, it really was.
And what was the role like? I guess now we're talking about when you slightly got older. Were people like dancing at these clubs, like when you hear this kind of stuff, or is it more of a sit down barroom thing, or a little of everything?
Well, I did all kinds of gigs in Chicago. So some of the gigs were ballroom dances where people actually danced to some of the jazz music, but we played cha-cha-chas, slow tunes, and some straight-ahead things. And then, there was club gigs where people just sat and listened. And, eventually, I got more interested in more of the more complex jazz, because I was listening to records like, there was a record called Opus de Jazz, and it was on a Savoy label, and it featured Kenny Clark, Wendell Marshall, Hank Jones, and Milt Jackson. And who was somebody on flute too? Can't think of the flute player's name. But they had a blues there was a blues on that album called Opus de Funk.
This is not Yusef Lateef on flute, is it?
No, it wasn't.
No, okay.
No. I can't think of the flute player's name.
So if it's Opus de Funk, was it more of a funk than a swing tune?
The blues.
It was a straight blues.
Straight ahead blues. You should look it up.
Yeah. We'll play it on the show. So that was something that hit you.
But Kenny Clark and Wendell and Hank, and it was really great. And then I was listening to Charlie Parker and then Max Roach, Clifford Brown, Sonny Rollins, and Harold Land, and Cannonball Adderley, Miles, and Monk,
And
Art Blakey,
did it seem
Billy Joe Jones, all those people.
right? Did it seem conceivable that you'd one day be playing with Monk and Miles and all these other characters?
No, at the time I was playing piano. Then I didn't switch to drums till I was in my later teens. So I was playing mainly piano in Chicago, and then eventually added the drums, and then started working on both instruments.
So, in Chicago, you had a whole other scene that we haven't discussed yet. You had the whole Roscoe Mitchell and the AACM scene. So, when did you first make contact with those guys?
Well, that was through Muhal Richard Abrams, legendary sort of mentor to a lot of us. People like myself, Joseph Jarman, Roscoe, the St. Louis contingent of people like Lester Bowie and Joe Bowie. Anyway, Muhal sort of had an open house for the musicians, and we used to go over to his house, and he'd help out with personal stuff, musical stuff, and it was very encouraging, and encouraging the musicians to do original music, and eventually, Roscoe, myself, Malachi Favors, Joseph Jarman, we all came by, and then Muhal decided to get a charter and a place for us to perform and rehearse and present our music, and created the Association for the Creative Advancement of Musicians. And so that was an alternative to the other normal gigs we were doing.
Right. And what kind of well, first, were you a little shocked that these guys were doing something so different than
Not really.
No,
that shock was nothing. I was just delighted that we had an opportunity to explore some other outlets to get our music out.
And what kind of scene was it in the early days in terms of the audience and the performance space?
Chicago was prolific with musicians. Chicago was the stepping off place for people coming up from the South. Go to St. Louis, come to Chicago, then go to New York. So Chicago's always been a big music town. So there's a lot of music there, all kinds, and a big music community of musicians. Musicians always, had a scene where they, supported each other and played together, and there's a lot of jam sessions involved. They used to have scenes like breakfast jams. I mean, when you played Chicago, you played from 10 o'clock till 4 in the morning, and then they'd have a breakfast jam, which would start at 7 in the morning and go all day in the afternoon.
Wow.
So you have people like, Johnny Griffin, Gene Ammons, or Eddie Harris, and Ira Sullivan. Just to name a few that would be holding forth at those sessions. I used to go to all those sessions,
Wow.
People like John Young, the pianist. Who else? Nicky Hill, John Gilmore. Who else? Jody Christian, the legend Jody Christensen on piano. Donald Garrett, who later was named Raphael Garrett, changed his name to Raphael. And the great, one of my influences and mentors, Wilbur Campbell on drums. And the big legacy of jazz, of the Chicago jazz musicians, was really supported, which is still supported over the last 50 years by an entrepreneur named Joe Siegel. You ever heard of the Jazz Showcase?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's legendary. I mean, he supported musicians, the Chicago musicians, and to this day he still has the Jazz Showcase going. So he has local musicians and musicians like myself who come in and play from time to time.
Wow.
And he also had a label called Delmark, which documents some of those recordings. And also on the other side of the alternative music was Sun Ra, who I spent many years playing on and off with John Gilmore, Marshall Allen, Ronnie Boykins, just to name a few.
Now, Sun Ra, I would think playing with him, you'd be learning something different from anybody else. And did he get something out of playing from him that?
Well, I got something different from everybody.
Yeah.
It was all a big potpourri for me of just all this great alternative music, different approaches to music. I mean, Sun Ra was amazing, composer, visionary, and, he wrote he used to read science fiction comic books all the time. He also, he believed in, extraterrestrials and outer space things, He wrote a lot of pieces about that, Yeah. And he used to make all the band costumes, and
so you'd be in the costumes along with them.
Pardon?
You'd be dressed up in the outer space costumes along with the rest of the band and jamming along.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that was part of it with Sun Ra.
Right. Unbelievable. So it must have been hard. Was it hard to move on to New York with all this stuff going on, or did it just?
Not really, because stuff started to shut down. The discotheques started coming, and a lot of the real music places started to dry up. So it was time for me to go to New York.
Okay, and once you came to New York, you're still both playing piano and drums kind of equally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
I got to New York at the tail end, just before Minton's closed and just before Birdland closed. So I got to experience both those places.
And who are you checking out at Minton's and at Birdland?
I sat in with Freddie Hubbard, and that's where I got my first gig. I was hired by John Patton, who was in the audience.
And that was a drum gig.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's when I decided to make drums my main instrument.
Wow. And then pretty soon after you were with Jackie McLean, is that right?
Yeah. Well, actually, I got the job with Jackie McLean through great composer and improviser Charles Tolliver.
Oh, okay.
Charles Tolliver, told me that Charles and I, when I came to New York, we became really close friends, and we hung out a lot, played a lot of jam sessions, and actually the infamous Slugs in the Far East was open, which was around the corner from where I lived, was on Third Street in the East Village, and so there was a lot of musicians on the Lower East Side. They had just rehabilitated some of the buildings. And there were some lost scenes there. And so there were a lot of musicians around, like Tolliver, Bobby Hutcherson, what's his name? The bass player. I can't remember now. The bass player. Herbie Lewis, Larry Ridley, and Charles Davis. But I got to see, all the great musicians when I got there. There was I sat in at Birdland with Wardell Gray, and Billy Mitchell, and not Wardell Gray, but Al Gray, yeah, and Billy Mitchell. And so, word went around town, and I started playing with a lot of the musicians. I started playing with Freddie Hubbard, playing with McCoy Tyner, and of course with Jackie McLean, and the band consisted of Larry Riley on bass, Bobby Hutcherson on vibes, and Cecil McBee on bass, and Charles Tolliver on trumpet.
How would you compare like the energies between the New York scene and what was going on in Chicago?
Well, Chicago was more laid back, New York was more intense. It was just a little more, everything was faster, basically.
And you got to sit in, was this at the time that you sat in with Coltrane during this period, or is that a little later?
No, that was before I came to New York.
Oh, wow. So before you were officially a drummer, you already got to play drums with Coltrane.
Well, I wasn't officially drum. I was playing drums then at that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what happened? I mean, did it change the way you approached your instrument at all?
No, it just validated what I was doing on the drums, basically. That I had been practicing with the records anyway, so I filled in for Elvin one night at a club in Chicago, and Coltrane trusted that I could play, so it was fantastic, playing with McCoy and Jimmy.
Wow.
And then later on, I played with, I was hired by Coltrane, come back to Chicago and play the Plug Nickel. That's when he was more into a more free approach to his music with Alice and Jimmy and Pharoah Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
And
Rashid Ali. And what was that experience like, playing in the freer band?
It was great. Yeah, it was great. Well, it wasn't unusual for me. It was just natural for me to be in those situations because I'd already been in that with the AACM and also with Sun Ra. So I mean, that music is second nature to me. So it was fantastic. It was great.
All right, and then the Jackie McLean, that's what led you to the Miles Davis gig, correct?
Yeah, well, Jackie had hired Tony Williams before Miles hired him. So, Miles came around to hear me with Jackie, and Jackie said to me, Miles and I have the same taste in drummers. And Miles you're going to be playing drums with Miles one day. So it came to pass.
Yeah, he was
actually filled in for Tony a couple of times when he wasn't available. So before I actually really officially stayed with the band on a permanent basis, I had played with Miles, with Ron and Herbie and Wayne.
Wow, so you were there right during that whole like transformational period of Miles's band, which ended up changing all music, basically. So when you were doing this, were you thinking like during your time with Miles, were you thinking like you're trying to be a sideman and support his vision, or were you kind of feeling free to do whatever you felt you wanted to do? Like how'd you approach your role in that band?
No, he just left me free to do what I wanted to do. He didn't restrict me in any way. That the bands at that time, he expected the musicians to think for themselves, and so he could set up a platform for him to do what he did. So yeah, I had a lot of freedom with him.
So that's totally, it was your vision, what was going on there, like on all those classic albums. So,
Well, my vision was just to play the best I could be and support and inspire the musicians to the best of my ability.
and did it feel at the time like you guys were making history, or did it just feel like normal life?
Well, at the time you knew it was special. Anything to do with Miles was special. So you had that. It was a very exhilarating feeling to be, to be in sort of at the mecca of jazz, one of the jazz greats, playing with that band and being given a stamp of approval. That really raised your stature,
Right, and it seemed like one of the things that you definitely did, which was probably different from all the other drummers, is there was you kind of brought in more of a funk and dance beats and rock stuff, and a whole new range of rhythms for Miles to react to.
Yeah, well, but Miles was listening to that same stuff too, so that's where he wanted to go, So, I provided that backdrop for him.
Right. But the interesting thing about that stuff rhythmically is that while you're providing, it's definitely got that funk, there's a tension because you're also kind of like pulling it apart and throwing in all these other influences that had come through,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very eclectic mix, but I was also able to, be able to play the groove and embellishing it without destroying the groove,
Yeah, that's something I wanted to actually ask you about is with your playing, somehow the pulse is always there. I mean, I guess you're kind of like a rock, which the band can rely on, and yet you also can get like totally a free feeling at the same time. So I was wondering if there's something that you do practice-wise to get there, some kind of a lot of work with a metronome, or I don't know.
It's just a natural gift, man. I'm a natural musician, so I just sort of go into this sort of a Zen space in a way, where I'm really totally tuned in to what's going on, to the internal and the external of creating sound, rhythm, and music, with the players, So it's I don't know how to describe it. I'm just saying okay. The best way to describe it is I've said it before, but I'm plugged into the creative library. Yeah, I plug into the creative library of to the library of creative consciousness. Yeah. So there's always something new to come up there. So I'm not trying to repeat things. I'm just trying to come up with something new all the time.
And I guess plugging in would require to be like totally in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely right.
So I imagine that when you're on the band stage, you're not thinking things like, oh, if I throw a triplet in here, that will create a polyrhythm.
No, I don't think in that way. I think more organically, I don't think, intellectually like that.
Wow. So do you think that can be taught, your approach?
You just have to listen to it. I listen to a lot of people. Yeah, I guess you can teach it too, I suppose, but it has a lot to do with the individual to being able to do that, to be spontaneous, to be able to have the balance of the intellect and the heart, in complete balance.
And is it a place that you can get to immediately, or it takes a little while to warm up when you're on stage or jamming?
No, I just go there, man. That's a place that I love to be.
Wow.
that's, what do you call it? It's there's a word for it. That's my passion.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that's why I get the calls. If if you can plug into that library of creative consciousness right off the bat on the one, people are going to want to be around that energy, I guess.
Well, it also helps to be able to play with other musicians who like that as well. So I've been fortunate enough to been having an opportunity to play with people like Sonny Rollins and Coltrane, Thelonius Monk, Charles Lloyd, Keith, a lot of great pianists. I've been fortunate enough. I was one advantage that I got from being a piano player and then playing drums. I get a chance to play with all these fantastic piano players.
Mm. And the piano playing really comes across in your drumming in the way that it sounds like you really pay attention to tuning your toms and the rest of the drum set.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, I know on the later records, I can always tell it's you because the cymbals have like this really perfect, super clean sound. But that's something on the earlier records when I went back to the Miles stuff and I'm listening to that, it was a totally different sound that you had in the early days. It was more of an aggressive, like sheets of sound type thing than that super clean thing. Is that because of a recording technology's changed, or you've changed your approach?
Well, I was using different cymbals then, but I designed my own cymbals in conjunction with the Sabian cymbal company in Meductic, New Brunswick. So over the last 15 or so years, I've designed a series of Jack DeJohnette cymbals that I've used. And I started out with a real dry sounding set of cymbals, which were unlaid, unhammered cymbals, real dry. Then I moved to sort of medium dry cymbals, and now I'm into that was the Encore series, and now I'm into developing another series of cymbals. I'm starting out now with a cymbal called a 3-point ride, which is a wetter cymbal, but it's also because it's hammered and laid and not laid in about 1 inch of the cymbal, it gets 3 different sounds when you play it.
Wow.
So, pretty amazing cymbal. It just came out fairly recently, and people who are interested in that can go to Sabian.com or go to the Memphis Drum Shop and tap in mycymbals.com and punch in Jack DeJohnette, and there's a short info video of me demonstrating the cymbal.
Wow, that's pretty heavy, man. If you can get 3 sounds out of one cymbal, and then I'm
working on now. I've got some prototypes of ride crash cymbals and hi-hats, and which are phenomenal. I've got them out on the road with me now. I'm in Seattle right now. We're out with my band, the Jack DeJohnette group, and having a lot of fun with them right now.
Cool, man. In that interview that I referred to before that I thought was so good with Ted Pankin, you said that you were glad that the Cellar Door album came out recently, those sessions, because you said that you feel that that's where Miles was really hitting whatever he was going for. And I wonder if you could kind of explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, well, Miles really wanted to get he really wanted to get to a wider audience, more of a pop audience. And so the music was moving more to a pocket groove kind of ways, but still with exploration. And he was able to get that with me and Michael Henderson and Keith Jarrett. I mean, for a while we had Keith and Chick in the band with Ayuto and Dave Holland before they left. That was documented on the Isle of Wight concert, and also at Tanglewood live CD. I mean, a live video that Carlos Santana recorded.
And how would you guys like? How was he? How did he lead the band? You know, like, is there ways that he would make people do what he wanted them to do? Like, it seems like he had this crazy charisma.
No, he would announce the next tune on his trumpet. Then we'd go into the next piece. That's all.
So he kind of, it seems like he never really verbalized a whole lot about what he was going for in terms of.
He paid attention. He paid attention, and everybody knew what was happening. You know, knew what was going on, what was coming up next.
Now with Miles,
it's a very intuitive process.
Mm-hmm. He said there's some quote that I said that on Bitches Brew, you were the he had you leading the rhythm section because you were the guy with the sunglasses on.
I don't know about that. I never heard that.
Oh, well, I think it might have been a metaphor. Being you were the guy with the laying down the funk, perhaps.
Oh, could be.
But we skipped one huge section before the Miles stuff. You were with Charles Lloyd and with Keith Jarrett in that band.
Oh.
And it sounds like some of the stuff that you're doing with Keith Jarrett, it's almost is it like I don't know, like it seems like he had a huge scope of stuff that he was doing, and it was to big audiences, which is something that you've accomplished with Keith Jarrett in the trio.
Mm-hmm.
So was that a model for you guys, or?
Say that last part.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's not such a good question. I mean, basically, I was wondering if like what Charles Lloyd was throwing down with that band, did that kind of influence the things that you and Keith would later do with Gary Peacock?
Not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean at that time, I think Charles' band and Miles' band, actually Charles' group was ahead of Miles in the sense because we played the Fillmore first before Miles did. Miles came a couple of years later. And the Charles Lloyd group, especially with the Dreamweaver album, was a crossover jazz band. I mean, at the time, there were a couple of other bands sort of like that. The Gary Burton group, which had Bob Moses, Steve Swallow, and Larry Coryell. And, people were wearing beads and things like that. That was, the British invasion had happened then. And we... I think we had a hit called Sombrero Sam.
Oh, yeah. That's a blues type song, right?
A blues vamp, yeah. And, that became a kind of a big hit. And then, of course, Charles Lloyd's Florist Flower was big again. At Monterey, we did that. So the Charles Lloyd Quartet was a crossover band. It was one of the bands that was really successful going a crossover band. And also we at the time, George Avakian, who was Charles's manager, and he's also at one time managed Benny Goodman, did some things for Benny Goodman, and also Sonny Rollins. Got the band to play in Tallinn in the Soviet Union before the communists, the Glasnost happened,
Right. Wow.
So we had a lot of press. So, yeah, that was, a forerunner before Miles' band came, Uh, and at one time, actually, we played opposite each other. Miles's band with Tony and Charles at the village gate. We did a weekend where both bands played opposite each other.
Wow, and it sounds like, I mean, one thing that you and Keith both have in common is that you guys can definitely get super experimental, but you can also just lay in the pocket for long periods of time.
Well, that's why Miles dug us, having us in the band, because we could really do that. We could lay the groove down, and we could get very esoteric when it was necessary.
Awesome, man. And let's I guess, I almost get so overwhelmed when I realized I only had a day before I found out we're going to do this interview, and I looked at your discography, and it was like, even if I listened to everything at quadruple speed, I wouldn't even make a dent. But maybe we should move into some of the more modern stuff that you've done lately, like the Trio Beyond record is a really, really amazing thing. Maybe you can tell us how that came together.
Well, that was a result of, I was invited to be, the Montreal Jazz Festival, which is a very, very, very exciting world jazz festival that happens at the end of June, beginning of July.
Mm-hmm.
They have a couple of weeks of artists in residence where you do 4 nights, and some of the other acts that are up there, you're allowed to choose and put together bands each night to put a different group together. So I wanted to put together, I had this idea to pay tribute to Tony Williams' band, Lifetime Band, because it was such a great band. And I knew Larry Golding's work from playing with John.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them both at the time, would they be interested in, forming a group that would, do some of the music from that band, but also do some of our own music as well. And they said, yeah, they were interested, but unfortunately they weren't able to make that particular gig. So we got a week at Yoshi's the end of that year, and we recorded. I recorded every night, and then I sent the results of that to Manfred Eicher, who really got excited about it, and actually really wanted to put that out. But I said, let's wait, let's do a tour, let's make a record, and then we'll do a tour. So we did a tour of Europe, and we made a recording in London, Festival Hall, which turned out really, really great. And then Manfred liked it a lot, and then we put it out. It was a double CD, I believe.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a really great album.
And Larry Golding is an extension of Larry Young, actually, but he's got his own way. He's very unique on the organ. I think he's one of the best guys out there on the Hammond.
Now, another recent project that I play on the radio, probably more than anything else, is that your music from the Hearts of Masters.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you can tell us about that whole experience.
Well, with Fode, I first heard Fode on an album that was recorded in 1974 that Herbie Hancock did, called The Village. I mean, very few people know about it. But Herbie had just gotten into electronic keyboards. Yamaha had just come out with some electronic keyboards. And I think Herbie and Fode were doing, I guess there was an Olympics in Japan at that time. And Herbie and Fode went into the studio, and Fode had some compositions. And they had this song called Moonlight. And I really, really enjoyed that. And so I really became a Fode fan, and so Fode had his own bands, the Mandingo Griot Society,
Yeah.
Barrel Saunders, and he'd been working integral part of the Philip Glass band for a number of years. And so I was in London some years ago, and Philip was playing, and Fode was there. So I went to the concert and went backstage and talked to Fode and said, "Hey, man, you know, I heard that record you did with Herbie, and I sang him The Moonlight." He said, "Oh, man, you know that music?" I said, "Yeah, man, you should get together. We should do something." He said, "Well, I'll come up and visit Philip in January, and I'll come up." So he came up to the house. We spent 3 days and jammed a bit, and then went down to my studio and recorded. And Hearts of the Masters was the result.
Wow, it has such an organic feel, and it's amazing how well like the tones work together on the kora and your drum set.
Yeah, well, you know, Fode is also a singer too. He's a griot, you know. He's a griot history for the Mandingos, and so he's an oral historian. But he decided, and we both agreed, nothing like that had been done, jazz drums and kora. So we co-wrote some pieces together. Fode would play ostinato, and I would come up with a beat for it. So it was that African connection that was that we both integrated into what was happening. So you know, Fode is like a great jazz improviser in the African sense, not in the straight-ahead jazz sense.
And with the African stuff, do you ever feel like I know I study with a griot as well, and sometimes he'll show me a rhythm, and then when we set it to some other instrument, it'll totally have started, and you know the one is not where I thought it was. Did you have any experiences like that with some of the African grooves that he was throwing down?
Mm-mm.
No, just right.
The African connection is right there with me. You know, I've been to Africa and played with the West African Sabar rhythm drummers, and we connect, man, like right away.
Yeah, you did.
I love playing with hand percussionists. You know, I've done stuff with Don Elias, and I've done stuff with I had a Latin project band which featured, you know, actually a lot of music from Don Byron's Music for Six Musicians, which featured what's his name, Giovanni Hidalgo and Luisito Quintero on percussion, Edsel Gomez on piano, and Jerome Harris on the bass. I love playing with other drummers, you know.
Yeah,
hand percussion too, because I love playing hand percussion. So I have a hand percussion sensibility when I play the drum set. You know, that's why I tune my drums in a particular way, so that I can adopt some of the hand percussion rhythms to the drum set.
And you also did a project, I don't know if you recorded, but with a singer from Mauritania.
That is recorded, but it's not released yet. That's Demi Mint Abba. Yeah, Demi Mint Abba.
Mm-hmm.
She's also a griot from Mauritania. She's amazing. Her daughter and her son and a hand percussionist, a guitarist, and a bassist. We did 3 nights in Paris. And there is some plan to try and do something in Europe with Demi Mint. Really love the music, and just scheduling is a trip. You know, trying to get that together.
Right. And do you spend some time in that country?
No.
No,
Dave Lehman and Jean-Jacques Quesada spent time in Dave, I guess for his 60th birthday, wanted to go off to himself and and went to Mauritania, and they heard Demi Mentaba and in a car, sought her out, and they brought her to Paris, and she was received really well.
Now, another another world interests you. You did this album, Music for the Fifth World. Maybe you could tell us what is the Fifth World?
Well, that's connected to related to my connection with the Native American aspect of my ethnic origin. So, I'm part Seminole and Crow, and I'm inducted. Well, not inducted, but we had a relationship with a grandma, Twyla Nietzsche, a Seneca elder who was up at the Cataracas reservation near Buffalo, and she had workshops, and our family went up there, and we were inducted into Seneca Wolf Clan as wolves, all wolves. My wife and 2 daughters, and my brother-in-law. So she told this story. She has a book called what was it called? Other council fires were here before us, and it's just spoken to her and given to her by a stone person, because the Native Americans believe everything has soul and spirit, and this stone person was named Giyak, and it's most basically like a creation story. Talks about the different worlds: first world, second world, third world, fourth world, fifth world, and the fifth world was. We were moving out of the fourth world and into the fifth world, into greed, separation, and into truth and integration.
Oh, that's hopeful.
So anyway, I met this. It was inspired by Grandma Twyla Nietzsche, and I met this woman named Joan Henry, and her husband. At the time, Dennis Yerry, and we put together a unique project, and it was basically a tribute to rock, to electric music, to rock and roll, to rock things like Hendrix and things like that, but also to my native roots. And we had quite an amazing array of musicians on that, because we had 2 drummers, 2 guitars, and we had from the band Living Color, we had Will Calhoun on drums and Vernon Reed on guitar, along with John Schofield on guitar, Mike Cain on piano, and Lonnie Plaxico.
There's one track on there. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. I think it's Dohiyi Circle.
Yeah, that was Joan Henry. She's a beautiful singer, and she's African and Cherokee mix, and she studied the native songs, and she can speak some of the native language, and she translated the English words into for Fifth World into Jaliki or Cherokee lyrics. She made that up. That was her composition. Circle.
The interesting thing,
going around,
Yeah, it sounds a lot like the Pygmy music. They do that same thing with the rounds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow, and a few more beautiful albums they came out with recently. There's the Bill Frisell pairing with The Elephant Sleeps.
We might add that these records, like Hearts of the Masters and Alice still remembers are on my own label, Jack Golden Beams. So people know that's the label.
Right. How do you feel? I mean, is it a joy to have your own label, or is there fax sending and stuff like that kind of?
Well, it has its ups and its downs, but I'm happy. I'm glad I have it, and I'm happy about the results of some of the music I've put out.
Oh yeah, well, we're glad you did over here. I mean,
some of the music on the Fifth World actually I'm doing with the Jack DeJohnette group. We incorporating some Darkness to Light music, Fifth World Anthem, and so yeah, there's this new band incorporates some of the music from the special edition, from Gateway, from my past stuff, and music, new music that I'm writing.
So do you ever? I mean, it seems like you're so busy. Is it hard to keep relaxed with so many projects and all this going on?
Yeah, I mean, I have spaces, where I'm not working a lot. I work in spurts, So I'm starting to get busy now. I'll be busy up through July, to the end of July, and then I slow down August and early September.
And do you have a different approach do you feel different when you play than you did like years ago, when maybe you had more to prove, or just were younger?
Yeah, well, I'm learning how to play with, more relaxed, so I have more energy to play what I want to play.
So even when you're playing at the most intense levels, there's some level of relaxation that you're tapping
I have
into?
to, otherwise I couldn't do it at all.
One thing I wanted to jump into is, like, you play with a couple of performers who are some of the most, what's the word? They have the most charisma, and they can hold an audience, and so incredibly. And I'm thinking of, like, Keith Jarrett, who can have an audience sitting at the edge of their chairs just because he picked up his towel, and I think Miles, I would imagine, was kind of the same way. Do you have any insight to how these performers have such incredible gravity?
It's just they have a charisma, that just is, and it communicates, and all these people are very serious about the message they have in their music, and they have a way of communicating that,
And do you feel that you have a particular message that you're trying to get across?
I just want the music to be the best it can be, and I want the music to have an uplifting appeal to people, and make them smile, and feel good about themselves, and about being able to make serious changes that will help make the environment and the world we lived in a better place, And and I've made some contributions to that, in the fact that I relate to a couple of recordings that I did on my label, which are not jazz related, really. The first one was Music in the Key of Om, which is for relaxation and meditation. And then the second album that I did was called Peacetime, which I won a Grammy for last year, which had more rhythm to it and more of a flow to it, and could be fitted more in with jazz, but it's also for relaxation. I think people need some music like that to cool themselves down, and get some relief from the stress levels that our society is facing.
Yeah, and
to clean up our environment and sustaining it, and learn how to get along with one another, and learn how to uh, utilize clean energy sources and stop depleting the natural resources of our planet, like there was like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I could keep asking you 100 more questions, but I think you've been really, really generous with your time already. Any important things that we might have any important points we might have missed in this discussion?
No, except that I hope people get a chance to hear this new band. The players are so exceptional.
Yeah, what's the lineup?
Rudresh Mahanthappan.
Oh, nice.
David Fusinski on the double neck electric guitar. George Colligan on keyboards and acoustic piano. And Jerome Harris on acoustic bass guitar and electric bass guitar and vocals.
All right. And
it's all my music. It's all Jack DeJohnette's music from years past to the present. And it's a really captivating band. And like I said before, we're planning on putting out an EP and also having some downloads available in the near future. It's a kind of band where I would compare it to the Grateful Dead, because every time we do the pieces, they're so different. We never play the pieces the same. The interpretation is never the same. So I'm hoping that fans will just want to get, every performance that we do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, get the bootlegs or or download the live performances.
Well, I hope to cut down on the bootlegs.
Yeah, well.
Having downloads available myself,
Okay. Wow. So I didn't know you. So you checked out the Grateful Dead a little bit in your time?
Well, yeah, we played opposite each other, during the Fillmore. Yeah, I know. I played opposite. We played the Charles Lloyd Quartet played opposite there. Jerry Garcia and Pigpen and all those players. Janis Joplin and Jefferson Airplane, all that.
I think I read from one of the Grateful Dead's autobiographies that they were pretty scared to follow you guys.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But
maybe they were being humble, but...
Oh, one other thing I'd like to say is that we just talk about the music we are, like the last...
Yes, yeah, with Danilo Perez and John Patitucci.
Right, so that trio is a very exciting trio that I helped put together. In fact, I've helped put John and Danilo together. And then we went out and toured was a quartet with Jerome on guitar. And then we decided we wanted to do a trio album, and we did this music we are. And we actually did a week at Blue Note last year, and we did the Puerto Rican Jazz Festival. And when everybody's available, we might do some things. But we are also doing some pieces from Music We Are project with the new Jack DeJohnette group.
Okay, and it's interesting that Danilo and John and you all have like a lot in common as performers in terms of your range of influences and directions you go, because that album gets really wide open, and it also gets really grooves.
Mhm. Yeah. No, we have a lot of fun playing together. We really have a great rapport.
Cool. And let's see, any other great projects coming up? Or
I just recently did a project with Bob Belden. It's a Bob Belden project. It's called Miles Espanol, and the concept was to get players like myself, Chick Corea, Spanish musicians like Chano Dominguez, to play some of the compositions that Miles did that were influenced by Spanish composers, and rearrange them. And also, it was my suggestion to Bob to like players also write some original compositions influenced by the Spanish music. So I did a composition called Span Tango with Chano Dominguez and Eddie Gomez and Jorge Pardo on flute. And I also did some pieces with Chick Corea, which came out good. And there's a whole series of different artists doing this, but it's called Miles Espanol. And I also did a recording with a Russian pianist named Ivan Formakowski with Christian McBride, which was really great, which should be coming out sometime later this year. And also, I think I did a recording last year with Louis Perdomo, who actually plays piano with the Robbie Coltrane band, and Drew Gress. And Robbie plays on one of the tracks. He produced it, and that's a really good album as well.
Do you have to put a different head on when you're doing these studio recordings than when you're out playing live?
No, I try and realize the composer's music, the best way, make it sound good, bring it to, make it, fit the composer's vision,
Yeah, I want to play one track when we do the show from the Guitars album with McCoy Tyner.
Uh-huh.
And I wondered if you had a track that stuck out in your mind as a particularly fun one, or one artist that you dug from that album.
I mean, there's one. The track was, I think, it was blues with Schofield, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Maybe Mr. PC or something like.
Oh yeah. Did they do Blues on the Corner? Did they do that one? Did they do that one?
I think so. I remember seeing it. I haven't listened through the whole album, so
yeah. Oh,
okay, that's the one.
I'm not sure which one.
Okay. Cool, man. I'm looking at my list of stuff, and there's still so much more, but I know you got you got things to do. If I were to ask you about every single one of these classic albums and stuff, but one last question. I was curious: is it a totally different thing? Now you're playing Carnegie Hall and big festival stages. How do you compare performance now as a jazz artist compared to when you're getting your start and just the environment?
Well, I think the environment's much tougher for musicians who are not established, because you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to be able to manage the electronic media like Facebook, Twitter, all those kinds of things. And you have to figure out a way to get people to come to your sites and get people to get to know you. And, it's a lot harder than it was when I was, coming.
And do you do all that stuff yourself? You're
Oh, I have people working on that for me. I have a Facebook page. I have MySpace, and there's a Twitter account set up as well. But I only use it for just for business purposes. I say a few. I check in and read the comments, and let the fans know I appreciate their comments, and make commentary about where I'm playing and what's going on, symbols or some new things going on. So, but you have to be able to navigate that pretty well.
right, and because the reason I was asking is it seems tough to get to that state that you were talking about of tapping into this library of creative consciousness when you're getting instant messages in your pocket or have to check your status update.
Well, I turn that off. It has an on-off switch.
Yeah. But in general, do you think the technology that's around us kind of makes things like harder, such as concentration or getting into that Zen kind of mindset?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I think we spend too much time in front of a screen. You know, whether it be on a BlackBerry or an iPhone or a laptop or whatever. You know, you ever just go somewhere where you don't have a phone and BlackBerry, and nobody can reach you for an hour or for, you know, or something that doesn't have to be there yesterday. You know, the electronic stuff creates more stress because people are under a time factor that it makes it seem like time is going faster than it really is.
Yeah, and with music, you can, if you want to, you can counteract that. I mean, kind of like what you did with the music in the key of Om and the other stuff.
You can. But, you know, everything is 24/7. Sometimes I think it's too much. You need a break sometimes.
Well, anyway, I really appreciate you taking all this time. I learned a lot. And any particular track you think that you would love for the people to hear from your career? Anything that jumps out?
Yeah, well, you could play. Let's see what do you call it? Tango African, you know, from Music We Are, which features me on the melodica, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Which is something I play from time to time. I use it with the new band.
Yeah, and you do it on the DeJohnette complex with where Roy Haynes is on drums.
Right.
What made you choose him out of all the possible drummers?
Because he's one of the best. He's one of the greatest drummers around. Still is.
Yeah, it's amazing, huh?
Very unique. Very unique. Still going strong in his 80s.
Well, anyway, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And
hey, man.
Yeah, this will be at least we'll do a 3-hour show, and I think I have material for plenty others. So
okay.
And I guess I don't know that, but anytime you want to promote anything, you can just get in touch with me directly or have your people do it.
Okay.
Should I shoot you an email, or what's the best way, or just...
You contact Jane.
Jane, okay.
Jane is my manager.
Okay.
She's my point person, so...
All right. Well, yeah, man, thanks. Appreciate everything, and...
Have a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great.
Okay, man.
All right, enjoy the day.
See you later.
Care. Bye.